Welcome into the DNVR Avalanche Podcast. We got the whole squad of 4 here on an off day with some ranging NHL hockey news, a little bit all over the place. We'll get into some GM stuff and the firing of Jarmo Kekalainen in Columbus. We'll talk about some scouting stuff. We'll talk about some of the players the Avs definitely won't get at the deadline. But first, I wanted to talk about the Arizona Coyotes, or rather, the Arizona Coyotes announcing a streaming platform for their NHL games where local markets will be able to access all of their games via streaming for $12 a month. It's been a hot topic in Colorado for a long time, obviously, with the dispute that ALLCITY has been going through with Comcast about finding effective ways to provide their product to the people in their local broadcast area. Is Arizona a proof of concept that this is a feasible thing that more NHL teams should be doing? Or is this a organization that has been desperate to find avenues to get their products to people for a long time?
I think on one hand, Avalanche fans should be looking at it going, okay, we've been hearing for 5 years that this isn't viable.
Yep.
So there should absolutely be some frustration just with that. We've seen with baseball and basketball, so there have been some rights disputes with Bally and AT&T kind of pulling out of the sports market altogether. And teams have come up with solutions because they didn't want to not have their local fans have access to the games.
Yep.
And it's been very frustrating to sit in Colorado and watch as those happened because KSE just seems totally apathetic to the plight of Colorado sports fans.
Yep.
Their answer to everything is get DirecTV, and if that's not a viable option, then they're like, "We'll get Fubo." And it's just like, all right. So on one hand, that part is frustrating. On the other hand, do you really ever want to be taking a cue from the Arizona Coyotes?
No, I don't want to dunk on them. But
I'm not trying to, but that's what I'm saying is that's an organization that
I'm backing you up here by saying the reality of the situation is the Arizona Coyotes have never been a profitable organization.
No.
I don't have the numbers, obviously. I don't know what this streaming platform is going to do for them. But based on that organization, I don't know if it will be a profitable measure. With that being said, what? Not off the top of my head.
Yeah, it was $100 for Rocky to see Rockies games.
So that's not that. Arizona's thing for a hockey season would be like about the same price.
Yeah. So right now the one that they announced was it's $11.99 for a monthly.
Yep.
There's 2 months left in the season, so
yeah.
And then $24.99 for the rest of the season. So about 28 games, something like that.
Yep.
So you're right.
Seems
you're
like
right in the range of $1 a game for the rest of the year. To me, I'm like,
if the Avs announced that tomorrow, I would sign up immediately,
because I would want to support that.
Yep.
We wouldn't personally need it, but I would absolutely want to support that and give them money to say, hey, this is what we've wanted the entire time.
Yep. This side of the couch feels on it.
It feels like proof of concept that this is conceivable. I think the fact that it is a necessity for Arizona to have come out with this also helps, but it also points to how a team with some amount of dysfunction and uncertainty around it is able to pull off a streaming service. So I don't see the excuse then for a team like the Avalanche with a passionate base well established behind it not to have something like that available to them. I think it's a disservice to the growth of the game, just beyond the Colorado fan base. It's a team that's in a competitive window right now that has stars that could probably be marketed to even more people, and it's a shame that even their home fans don't have really easy access to watch their team.
How's it been working since the start of the season? The ignorance is talking right now. Have they been on Fox Sports Arizona? Is that
this? I'm not going to know the answer to. I don't know how that. I don't know how
did they switch
fans
it like
in Arizona have been watching Arizona games.
Like
I
Nasher and those
know.
guys. Like I.
Yeah, I'm not sure,
I'm
to
not
be
sure.
honest with you.
Okay, stupid. All right, stop that question there. What is it different than for them than, let's say, LA this year? As we know, they got out of Fox Sports, right? So they're whatever they're called. That
Yeah, I mean, Arizona was with Bally.
Yeah, so all the regional sports networks are out, but LA this year they've been doing the streaming service. So is it something like that, or?
Yeah, there's a...
And Vegas has been doing the streaming service.
Yeah.
So is it kind of the same thing? Is that, again, I'm not a TV guru, like, you know.
Yeah, I mean, given that the Arizona one was announced today, I don't know all of the details.
That's what I'm saying. Like, announced today, but is it the same as
the only
Vegas
major things that I know are all non-national games are readily available in their broadcast region, so it's not blacked out ever.
So it's like Vegas and LA, what they're doing this year.
Sure.
Right? Because they went to Nick Nixon, the radio guy for the last like 50 years, but now it's dual. Like it's radio and this app. And Jim Fox is there with, you know, Darryl Evans and, you know, and I think Vegas, we saw them in the rookie camp, remember, in Vegas? And obviously the folks at AT&T Sportsnet were doing the Vegas Golden Knights, you know, here out of Colorado the last 6 years. But so they're out, and then it's a streaming service now. Like that's... I just don't even know what it's called. But I was just wondering if it was the same thing as what was announced by...
I'm sure it's similar mechanically,
be,
but
right?
I don't know if it's like the exact same thing.
And again, I'm clueless, so I'm just being honest. Wondering.
For me, I think it's Megan's point that is the most frustrating with this one. Again, I'm not trying to dunk on Arizona, but over the last handful of years, they've been one of the worst teams in the NHL.
Yeah.
And they've figured out how to deliver this product to their fan base. Whereas the Avs and Nuggets, because they're both under Kroenke, have both won championships in the last 2 years. And their fan base is sitting out in the cold that don't have a direct-to-consumer streaming service available.
Mm-hmm. Because even if you were to get Fubo, both the NBA and the NHL have games on TNT. Fubo doesn't carry TNT.
Yep.
So those are games that there's nothing you can do about it. And even this Coyotes service, it's the non-exclusive national games.
Correct.
Are the only ones that are not on there.
Yep.
So I don't know how many again, not trying to be mean, I don't know how much of a problem that is for Arizona.
I don't think they got a ton of national games for sure.
especially the remainder of the year. So that might be a bigger problem for the Avs because they end up on they end up on national TV
it was
pretty
like
frequently.
16 times this year.
Yeah.
I think they
So
got national.
But it is absolutely frustrating that all of these teams, because all of these teams have had to figure it out in the last year since the bankruptcy case started. I think it was last February
With Bally.
Valleys.
all of these organizations have been able to figure it out in the last year, and we're going on like 5 years of this, and everybody from Altitude always just throws their hands up and goes, "It's not our fault. This isn't viable." And when we always ask the follow-up question of why isn't it viable, there's never an answer.
Yeah.
And so once again, we're in this room of it's just frustrating that this is a golden era at Ball Arena between the Nuggets and Avalanche. You have two of the best teams in their respective leagues that local fans can't easily watch.
It becomes a lot harder to justify as other teams start to do what they say they can.
Yeah,
Certainly.
exactly. And so, it's not making us any money. Oh, it's not. It's either been a money thing or a technology thing, and now both of them. The money thing has always been bullshit because you're not making any right now. And the technology thing, okay, well, now all
got the tech.
All of these teams have figured it out within a year.
Yep.
We're going on half a decade of this.
It's tough.
Yeah.
I guess for me, I don't want to hear it anymore.
Yep.
I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear whose fault it is. I have long been sympathetic to the employees at Altitude.
Yeah.
Because they're just trying to do their jobs.
Exactly. Those guys aren't the ones in the room making the decisions, but they are the ones that attack people like me every time I get pissed about it.
Yep. It's a tough spot. You just wish the Avs organization or Kroenke's organization, whatever you want to call it, would figure it out, and there would be better access to the sports that we all love.
and the work they put into it.
Yeah, of course.
Into their broadcast.
They're doing all these broadcasts whether people are able to watch them or not. So
Right.
Well, and we know that you're talking about the work that the people put into it. We know that they've hemorrhaged talent.
Yep. Because
They've
they're not
slowly bled staff over the last couple of years because they're not on Comcast. And look, Comcast is obviously the big bad guy here.
Yep.
But the refusal to consider any alternative solutions from KSE has become, in my opinion, it's just unacceptable. I don't want to hear it.
Agreed.
It's cost people jobs. It's cost people opportunities. How many people do we know behind the scenes who have left Altitude?
A lot.
Because it's not a viable thing because they see that they're bleeding money. They're cutting behind the scenes. We complain about their broadcast almost every single game.
Yep.
And they're undermanned at this point.
Just the reality.
It's not even the people's fault who are involved. The people who are at fault don't give a shit because they're at the very top of this. They're not trying to watch an Avalanche game on television. They don't care. It's people. It's the day-to-day people like us that are caught in the crossfire of this.
Yep.
And it sucks. It just sucks. And when something like this comes up, it is very frustrating because it feels like, hey, other organizations are trying to come up with solutions here.
Yep.
And you guys are just sitting here making excuses. It's a bad feeling.
It's not great.
Yeah, frankly, it pisses me off.
It's frustrating that it feels like there should be a solution right there. That whatever's actually going on behind the scenes, again, I don't know. I don't have the exact numbers. I can't tell you that.
Totally.
But certainly from an optics perspective, this feels like the Kroenke organization is choosing not to do something like this.
It's tough too with people needing to make cuts to things in their life that are non-essential, and I think that starts with expensive cable packages that they just can't justify monthly anymore.
Yeah.
And I think fewer fans are able to even attend games in person if they live nearby, just because those are non-essential expenses that I think are becoming hard for people to take on right now. This is something affordable that allows fans to connect with their team in a more realistic way than they might be able to right now.
Yeah. The last time I had cable, which was years ago now, it was something like $90 a month for like the cheap cable package version. If you're released, which I was paying $90 a month essentially just to watch hockey games. Like, that's it. Compare that to what Arizona just dropped at $12 a month essentially. It's not even a second thought for me. I would pay for that in a heartbeat.
Yeah, and if the entire, like we were just talking, the Rockies had it's $100 to watch the
entire
Rocky season.
It's
Yeah,
an easy choice. Yeah.
like, yeah, I'll pay that upfront cost and I'm done. I will watch 6 months of the Rockies baseball.
Yep.
No problem. I don't have to get cable. All I have to do is just roll on in there and watch Rockies baseball. Great.
It has all the games. It also has them all on demand for Arizona's one. So if you can't watch it live, it's sitting right there for you, ready to go. Unlike even things like ESPN Plus sometimes don't have the game readily available for a rewatch right away. So without getting too much further into this, because I will always ultimately spiral into national blackouts or local blackouts are stupid and they just need to get rid of them.
Yeah.
But
feels like a lot of easy ways to fix this, but it
Yeah.
would cost the rich people money, so they don't give a shit.
Yep. Anyway, we can move on from this topic. Get into the rest of our show, because I did want to talk about the actual NHL news. The firing of Jarmo Kekalainen in Columbus. Obviously, we can talk about Columbus and Kekalainen specifically. I also do want to tie this to the, not necessarily a conversation about the Avs, but a bigger conversation about GMs in general. But for Jarmo specifically, 11 years as the GM of Columbus. Was he there too long? Did he get too much runway?
I think so. I mean, what has he accomplished?
Not a ton.
He goes to the second round of the playoffs one time. How much time do you need to
There's not a lot of accolades there. I hear you.
Rebuild. Yeah, I like that he was creative. I like that when he had a good team, he got aggressive. Remember that crazy deadline where he knew that Artemi Panarin and Sergei Bobrovsky were leaving in free agency, so he went and got Matt Duchene and Ryan Dzingel and a couple other guys that I already don't remember because it was a long time ago. And they upset that great Tampa Bay team and then lost in the second round and everybody left.
I'll jump in.
Go for it.
It's a results-driven business.
Of course.
I mean, coaches, managers, like I said to you earlier, I mean, I don't really know them. The only thing I know much of them is I went to St. Lawrence, he went to Clarkson. We're 7 miles apart. We hated each other. That's what I know of most of them, playing against them. He's a bit older than me, but as a freshman, I want to say he was a senior or a junior. Nice man, did some great things in St. Louis before going to, and there's always a connection, right? John Davidson was in St. Louis. That was the connection with him, goes to Columbus, brings him to Columbus. If you're asking a yes or no answer on a results-driven business, I would say the answer is really no, like AJ said. I mean, 10 and a half years, at some point, you got to have more results. I don't know. It wasn't from a lack of trying. Like you just cited that example of really going in there and essentially wasting like 3 first-round picks, whatever it was. Left it all out on the table. Didn't work out. I got no problem with that. I don't mind when you swing for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's all good.
I think that level of aggression is good for the game. You want a GM that wants to go for it every once in a while. That's great.
And you know what? 1 out of 32 are gonna be successful. You know what I mean? So it's the ratio is not good. Now, do I think he's going to land back in hockey? Yes, for sure. Good hockey person. Here's what I'll say, and that's by not really knowing. That's just from an outsider's perspective. Is a lot of times people they get to the top seat. There's 32 in the world in that top seat, right? There's 32 GMs in the world. In the NHL, I'm talking about, right? They're tough seats. They're tough jobs. Some guys sometimes are better off not being in that seat. If you look at his tenure, maybe a lot of times, a lot of ingredients, and maybe he didn't have a recipe. And I think if you don't have a recipe and you're in that chair, it's tough. And I think that's where the results are for him. You don't like to see anyone getting fired and let go and all that stuff. So you wish him the best of luck. But what a disaster this has been. This whole, lately, and especially this season with the hiring of Mike Babcock. And I mean, it just kind of went downwards from there. You know what I mean? Like everything was just cost jobs, right? And unfortunately cost jobs. And sometimes you make those decisions and, they were the wrong ones. And you end up paying the piper. So I think that's where Columbus is at now. And it sounds like they're going to look on the outside, for JD. Yesterday's answer was, where are you going to find that new guy? He goes, outside that building.
Well, I think a fresh set of eyes is exactly what Columbus needs. I think that Jarmo has an NHL career ahead of him in some way. I think there are things at the beginning of his time as GM that were high points and good things. And I think following the 2019 season, there was maybe hope to give him a few more seasons of chances. And even looking at whoever is going to inherit this team, there's a really talented, promising young core for someone new to come in and mold. And I think some of that is a credit to then Kekalainen, and why I think that there's probably an NHL team that would have interest in him in front office management moving forward. But there wasn't more he could do in Columbus, especially with how this season has gone. There was too much dysfunction, from Babcock to the handling of Merzlikins and the trade talks and the contract. And then with that young core, there are many of them becoming RFAs this summer or the next that are going to need new contracts. And with everything about how this season has gone, it's clear he wouldn't be the right person to enter those contract discussions. And so there's still a lot of promise with the team that is going to be left then for someone to inherit. But what Jarmo couldn't overcome is making Columbus a destination. there was a lot of turnover, and I think that the dysfunction really boiled over this season, in part with the cultural problems of the disconnect with bringing on Babcock. I think that was evident that it just wasn't the right choice, and there's no recipe that I think they had to move off of then, and why I think looking outside the organization in a new set of eyes is exactly what Columbus needs moving forward.
It is interesting. Like, they are always going to struggle to attract talent consistently. Like, you're always going to struggle to be like, hey, come play in Columbus and not New York or whatever.
Basically, if you're not an original 16, there's going to be, or maybe LA, you're going to struggle.
Yeah, like if there are organizations that teams want to play for. You know, teams want to play for Tampa. You know, like it's a good organization. It's a good place to live. Like, you know, players want to play for teams like Tampa. Players want to play for teams where they get tax breaks that also have competitive aspirations. But even then, you know, they fall backwards into Johnny Gaudreau. They are able to convince a Damon Severson to sign with them over the last year. And so they've given out some money, and you still are wondering. It's the same conversation of, where are they going? Who are they? What direction do they have? They've had some brutally bad luck and with insane injury problems the last couple of years. But a lot of those guys
excuse being at the bottom.
But also a lot of those guys are like guys that they've paid.
Yep.
You know, Zach Werenski's hurt every year. Zach Werenski's great. He's always hurt.
Yep.
What does that do for you? Patrick Laine is always hurt. They do have a destination problem, and they have, and I think that the way that you overcome that is you just be the little engine that could. You know, you be a well-run organization that just gets it. You do the right things. You have the right approach. You treat players a certain way. You find a way to be competitive. You're smart with your front office. You know, you don't live and die by one single approach. You adapt. You're very malleable in your philosophy. You figure out who you are. You kind of figure out a program, and you go and you do it. And they have always felt adrift organizationally.
There are two things that if you're not a destination, if you don't have the tax breaks, if you don't have the city, if you don't have the ancient hockey culture, you win and you have a good culture. Those are the two things that can get people to come to your organization and make you a better organization over a long-term scale. Obviously, you can go out and get a good player any given year. That's what Columbus did when they went all in, right?
That's why.
But that doesn't mean long-term success.
No, but that's why you're two of the smartest guys west of the Mississippi, right? You know what I mean? It's true. Like,
people east smarter or
whatever. I don't know. I'm French, man. I'm using you guys as expressions. I was just about to say there's two things. Just look no further than the Quebec Nordiques, okay? What a mess. Nobody wanted to be there. Nobody wanted to play there. Nobody wanted to be on that team. There was trade demands every day coming in. Every day. We want to get the hell out of here.
Remember Jeff Carter?
Oh, here you go. I mean, I'm just saying. It's everywhere. So whether you're in Columbus or Denver, you know, like, if you have what it takes, which means you got to be about something. You can say you're about winning and you can be about winning. There's a big difference. You got to put your money where your mouth is. And then B, you have to recipe how to attain it. And this is where the Nordiques became that overnight when there was a change in direction. Yeah, it was my old man. I'm going to pump his tires. And then people wanted to be there. It was all about those vitamins that by the way, people, Tiff, you got to stop eating because they're going down. That thing is going down. It was all about vitamin W. It was all about winning. And it was all about a recipe. And then all of a sudden, everybody wants to be there. Everybody wants to come. Everybody wants to come to your franchise. Everybody wants to be part of it. Korea, Solani. You're talking about like absurd deals they took to come play here. That's what it's about. That's where Columbus has failed the mark. They were never about winning, and they never had a recipe. And if they had a recipe, they didn't know how to, and they still don't know how to make that recipe. It's another thing too, right? You can have a recipe on paper, but you have to freaking go and make the freaking
good.
Yeah, is it good? Yeah, right. I mean,
Columbus has drafted in the top 10 16 times
so
in their
how do
organization's
you
existence.
not have success?
And their best
That's
franchise
a lot, dude.
player is arguably one of their first picks in Rick Nash.
But that's what I'm saying. And look at the Abs 1.0. Look at the Abs 2.0. Look at Parisi last week. There's a reason he wants to come here because this is about winning, and there's a recipe. When you're a team that's just there, hey, you know what? I don't mind Columbus. I'm being honest with you. One of my favorite stops in the league all those years. I was freaking excited every time I went there. I loved it. We stayed like 10 minutes out. I don't even know Ohio, but we lived in Easton. The hotel was in Easton, and restaurants and bars and everything is like 10 minutes away from downtown. I love going there. One of my favorite buildings in the NHL. The practice ring attached to it. It's a great spot. Like it's a great sports area, right? I mean, you got Ohio State. What's not to like? You need a winning culture and you need a recipe. They don't have that. That's why they've been like.
I can attest to Eric's like of Columbus because when this news broke, he texted me and said, "Should we just go run Columbus as the GM?" And I said, "Do we have to live there?" And he said, "I like Columbus."
It's a great spot. It is. I'm being honest. Like, there just hasn't been. They've never been about winning, and they've never had the recipe to do it.
The wife gave me a hard no on living in Ohio, so.
I almost moved there instead of Colorado Springs.
Ooh,
so I almost actually became a Blue Jackets person.
Could be working with Aaron
Avalanche
Portsline
person.
right now.
It's a great spot. I'm being honest.
Well,
I never went, so I have no opinion.
And there's freaking Tim Hortons right by there, too, which is rare in the States.
In terms of whoever they hire next, it's got to be at least a kind of desirable job.
We're going to talk about this
it is.
in just a second.
Okay.
So,
Hit it.
Before we jump into that, make sure you're getting with Natures of Colorado. If you live in northern Colorado, anywhere up there, Natures of Colorado is your spot for amazing grade of cannabis and a vast different number of products ranging all over the place. You can get great deals, including $99 ounces every single day. When you use code DNVR, you can get a full ounce of any shelf for $85 an ounce. You can also get exquisite extracts for $15. Make sure you use that DNVR code when you hit up one of their 4 locations. They are in Log Lane Village, Garden City, Sedgwick, and Milliken. So again, anywhere northeastern Colorado, they're the Colorado dispensary for you. Hit up Natures of Colorado and save some time by ordering online at naturesofcolorado.com for pickup too. They even have a drive-through. Super easy to go get your weed with Natures of Colorado. And then throw some money down with Bet365. Get over there with the DNVR365 code. When you sign up with the DNVR365 code and you bet $5 on any NHL game, you get $150 in bonus bets. Use that QR code on screen right now to get signed up. Go put your money on whatever it might be, whether it be Columbus getting the new GM bump or the Avs turning it around because they get to play home games again. Whatever.
That'll help.
Gamble. Bet on Kucherov to win the Hart, or Mac to win the Hart, or McDavid if you want to be wrong and lose your money. It's fine. He's not going to win it. All the bets under the sun. You can even bet on futures. You can bet on whatever it is you're feeling when it comes to Bet365. Doesn't even have to be hockey. They've got tons and tons and tons of sports on there, including my favorite, betting on esports, but we won't get into that. Get it with Bet365. Go over there, use that DNVR365 code. Of course, you must be 21 or older, physically located in Colorado. Please gamble responsibly. And if you or someone you know has a gambling problem, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER today. Second period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast. We have a top 5 we'll get into in a second. I wanted to finish this conversation specifically because you look at an available GM job in Columbus. I think I know the answer to this, but Chris MacFarland's name has been thrown out there a little bit as a potential option for this job. One, what does that job have that he doesn't already have in Colorado? 2, for Chris MacFarland, I don't know how to phrase. What do you think his experience in Colorado has been? Has he done a good enough job as coming into the proper GM role in Colorado? And what does a long-term vision of Chris MacFarland look like here in Colorado?
I don't think he's done enough as actual GM of the Avs to deserve another GM job elsewhere. Just for my money, not enough has happened yet.
There's just not enough to go off of.
Exactly. It's too soon. Obviously, he was fantastic as an AGM here and spearheaded a lot of the big decisions that resulted in them ultimately winning a Stanley Cup. But since he's gotten in the big chair, there hasn't been enough of a track record. I don't think he's done a bad job. It's not enough of a job to definitively say, yeah, I'm going to turn the keys over to my franchise. I know that he spent 20 years in Columbus, whatever it was, as an AGM there, and ultimately when Kekalainen got there, and it didn't work out, and he ended up making a lateral move here,
and it's worked out pretty well,
and he got a chance to move upward. But for me, I just don't think there's enough there yet to say if I own the Blue Jackets, I'm not having that conversation.
What, to bring Mac there? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah.
As a lateral move or as the,
they would have to, right? Like they would have to. What would you even hire him as?
VP
because
or something,
you can't move laterally, but
Yeah,
you can say vice president of hockey operations / general manager.
Yeah, and
with John Davidson being president. Yeah, I mean,
if you're Chris MacFarland, does that even hold an appeal to you?
No, Chris MacFarland. I mean, sorry, go ahead. I didn't want to cut you off.
You have Cale Makar and Nathan McKinnon in their prime.
No. I'll jump in. Chris MacFarland for me is not going anywhere. Has done an unbelievable job, part of a group. And you got to remember, this has always been a group. Back in Avalanche 1.0 was a group. Yeah, there's someone at the chair making the final decision, but at the end of the day, the decision's already been made by the group. But you're the conductor of the phone calls and the all that kind of stuff. You report back to the group. So Chris has done. It's situational. Like obviously they win the cup and he's part of all those decisions. And then once you win a cup, then there's different decisions you have to make, right, to kind of try to stay afloat, right? So they're different in trying to get there. Now you're there. You're trying to stay there. So the decisions haven't been as flashy as the cup run, right? But I don't think he's going anywhere. I think this is where he is. This is where he is staying. This is where would you want to leave with, like you said, Cale and Mac and those guys. And quite frankly, this is where he was a known person in the league before, like you said, cutting his teeth. And is that the expression? Cutting his teeth, whatever.
Yep.
Is that one? Oh, yeah. Good. Sometimes I can mess around. All of a sudden, and he became expendable in Columbus, whatever. He comes here and really takes that next step. And, here I can tell you, he's got an unbelievable name around the league. This guy would be unemployed for 5 seconds. He would be. I'm just telling you.
I believe that.
Yeah, that is the name.
Why did they make him the GM?
Because he was going to get it somewhere else.
There you go.
Why did they make him the GM?
And again, I'm not saying you got to remember, every front office is built differently. There's no such thing. It's not like a In-N-Out Burger where, it's a franchise and this is how it works, and the bank is like this, and the recipe's this, and everybody's different. So the Avs accommodated the fact that was probably going to be gone, right? So
he interviewed for multiple GM jobs elsewhere.
Yep.
And he was going to get one of them, and the Avs were like,
gonna happen.
we're not interested in that.
He made
no.
the right move, and that's what I'm saying. And then ultimately, it's really not changing anything. It's not because he's got that title that the way they works differently. Joe might be a little less, involved on the phones, but at the end of the day, they're part of a big group. They have a great pro staff. They have a great amateur staff.
I want to touch on the organization of it a little bit. I want to get Megan's thoughts on MacFarland first, though.
Yeah, no, I think it would be appealing to Columbus, but not to Chris MacFarland.
No.
I don't think he would consider it. And I think as far as my evaluation of his job so far, I think people undervalue how much he had a hand in things before he was general manager in name.
I agree with this.
As EGM, I really do credit him for Lehkonen and Manson.
Yep.
And I think that Evan Rodriguez, as late in the offseason as he was a really big get for the Avs. The season wasn't what the Avs had hoped for last year, but he was such a great fit for the team. And I think it shows in the contract that Florida offered him what he was able to do to make his stock rise here in Colorado. I even look at Tatar, even though the stylistic fit wasn't there, as a really smart move. Wood and Colton, I know it's maybe a bit premature, but in seeing their fit here, I think it's an excellent acquisition. None of these are incredibly big or splashy, but even the affordability of Jonathan Drouin, it just made so much sense not to take a chance on that guy. And if you asked other people, they probably felt he didn't necessarily belong in the league before the start of this season. And due to unfortunate circumstances, can play alongside Nathan MacKinnon and look really comfortable there.
Yep.
I think that's a win, and that's more than just Chris MacFarland.
It's a group, yeah.
I think those things are moves, decisions that he can add to his resume. Obviously, Ryan Johansson has not worked out. But with Nashville hanging on to half of that contract, it was still not a stupid gamble to take. You hope he can unhandcuff himself to it, though. There are some things this deadline that will really determine how I feel about him, but there's nothing he's done through this point that I haven't really viewed as a positive or a neutral. Like Lars Eller, okay. I really don't think that hurt the Avs, but it didn't help them in the way that I think he would have hoped. So through this point, I'm happy with Chris MacFarland. There are some things, though, that are going to really hinder on what he decides to do this deadline.
It's a group, and it's a big group. That group's been together. And now Garth Joy had gone to New York last year. There's been a little bit of a change there. But it's the same group. It's the same group that went and took a chance on Val Nikushin. It's the same group that those guys worked well as a group. Forget about titles, and this is where you have to forget about the corporate world for a second. You know, everybody does their job there, and everybody's done the same thing. And I don't believe anything's changed the last couple of years. It hasn't changed. The only thing that's changed is the circumstances of the types of deals you have to make and you can make. Their group's been the same. They work the same way, and I do have faith in them. But if you want, I'm going to give you the 3 names that I think will take over in Columbus. And if I'm wrong,
go for it.
If I'm wrong, then I got to do like 20 push-ups live on the air, which I don't want to do.
What are the names?
Okay, here's my names. Forget about reading around. This is just common sense of how this game works all the time, right? And he said no stones left unturned, right? You know, I'm gonna go with the young one, up and comer, French guy, former Avalanche, Matthew Darche. Okay,
he's my top guy.
Yeah, that Darche's a good guy. He's awesome. He's eager, wants to learn, has wanted to learn the last few years. Has a good name around the league. Has been around winning. Julian pushes him too because he wants him to succeed. You know, I would say that's, if you're looking for the up and comer, that's the guy they're going to take. B, if you're looking for a rethread, and I hate saying that, the word rethread, because it's not a rethread, but the connection somewhere with John Davidson, is Jeff Gordon. He's in Montreal right now. Why would he leave Montreal to go there? Well, again, you tweak the title, and then it's not a lateral move, and he comes over there and takes over as both, right? And then there's a connection there, and they had success on Broadway, him and JD. So there's 2. And then 3, if you're going with the one that's never really worked in the NHL, but has a relationship with Rick Nash, which Nash is now there, right? Part of it's Mark Hunter, having dealt in juniors all those years and has done an unbelievable job. Worked with Toronto a little bit and then it didn't work out. But I would say it's one of those 3, or else I'm doing 25 push-ups live on the air, on the ground, with paramedics next to me.
Can't wait to watch you do the push-ups.
It's an attractive
and
job.
Rudo's sitting on my back.
You're not doing those. I'll tell you that right now.
It should be an attractive job. They've got Adam Fantilli and David Jiricek to build around.
Awesome.
They've got some good veteran guys that they've already signed. It's not like taking over Chicago, where you have Connor Bedard, but you have nothing else right now.
It's an attractive job, like it is.
Well, and that's the thing for me, just to wrap up this segment about MacFarland, is, to me, the Colorado GM job is the dream job right now.
Jesus.
We talked about it in segment 1. What are the 2 things you need? Winning and culture. All right, Avs have both of those.
Yeah.
On top of that, though, they also have a structure of, you have assets like Joe Sakic in your organization is Chris MacFarland. You have a pro scouting staff that has done an excellent job over his tenure in Colorado.
Easily Ryan Johansson, by far their biggest miss
For sure.
in the pro scouting staff in the last 5 or 6 years.
On a whole, they've been very, very good. And maybe most importantly, as much as we dunked on Kroenkes in the first period of this podcast, the Kroenkes have always been fantastic NHL owners. They don't meddle at all. They let their GMs do their job, do what they have to do, and they've always been willing to spend to the cap. So you don't have those internal battles like you hear about in Toronto where the ownership wants this, that, or the other thing. It's just, hey, we hired you to be the GM. Go do what you think is going to win.
It goes back to the recipe. Too many cooks in the kitchen, then all of a sudden your recipe's a disaster.
Yep.
And that's what you're saying. So, and for me, it makes them fantastic owners for a hockey franchise.
Mm-hmm. All right. On that note, we are brought to you by the folks over at American Financing. You can go get with American Financing today. They save on average their customers over $850 a month. That's $10,000 over the course of a year. So it's a big chunk of change. They do it by eliminating a bunch of high-interest credit card debt for you. Right now, you can get rates in the 5s. So it's a pretty good deal. Rates haven't been this low in a while when it comes to this type of thing. So give a call to American Financing today. Get on with them. Their sales associates are all salary-based, so they aren't trying to do anything weird or get you in on something. They just want to save you the most money possible. So get with them. Make sure you're getting in with American Financing at 303-695-7000. They may even be able to delay your next 2 mortgage payments to save you even more money. So give them a call. Let them know DNVR sent you over to 303-695-7000 or visit them at americanfinancing.net/DNVR. NMLS 182334, NMLSconsumeraccess.org. We're also brought to you by Fubo TV. Unfortunately, the Kroenkes have not set up a streaming service to get your access to the Colorado Avalanche. Fubo TV is the best option that you have. You can go over to FuboTV.com/DNVR today. You sign up with that QR code on screen too. You'll get 15% off your first month of Fubo Pro. And you'll get all of your Avs games, all of your Nuggets games, except, of course, the national ones on TNT. But all of your local games you'll have available when it comes to Fubo. So jump on that. And if you are a person that does like your television channels, it comes with 140 plus channels, including movies, TV shows, news, music, and more. So give Fubo a try today. You can do a free trial. It costs you nothing for 7 days to try it out. There's no contract when you sign up, so you can cancel at any time if you decide you don't want it. Get with them. FuboTV.com/DNVR today. Third period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast, and we do have a Bet365 top 5 to get to. AJ put this one together. I believe it's the top 5 players that the Avs will not be getting.
Definitely will not be trading for at this year's deadline.
So the things that aren't going to happen, so we don't have to watch you guys say it in chat every 5 seconds.
Yeah, I wish I'd put Boone Jenner on here. I should have had more confidence.
I hope that one doesn't happen. Not that Boone's bad. I just think there are better options.
We're going to talk some about Boone Jenner at some point. I don't know about today, but at some point.
It'll come up, no doubt. All right.
Avs fans are obsessed with the guy, and I don't get it, dude.
I don't get it either,
I just don't get it. I don't actually remember this list, so Jacob Markstrom is at 5. Great.
Okay.
It's definitely not going to happen.
It's just a money thing as much as anything for Colorado on that one, I imagine.
You're not trading for a starter when you've got Georgiev around. He's got another year. If this were to continue with Georgiev into next season,
you start having conversations.
You could start having that conversation, yeah. So Jacob Markstrom, I think, is the easy no.
You know, Eric brought this up after the game last night, but it's not so different from Georgiev in that last year, Markstrom's year, 8-9-2, under the duress of that Calgary season, the Darryl Sutter years. Kadri didn't seem to agree with the coaching quite so much. Rudo was not what they wanted him to be. And he kind of, like we've talked about with Georgiev this year, he couldn't overcome the circumstances in front of him and separate his game from what was happening in front of him. And so to me then, I don't think inheriting a team that has a little bit of some things they're working through is a gamble I'd want to take. I don't think it's so different from Georgiev, especially given what we saw in him last year. It's great that Markstrom is playing incredible this year, but I just don't know that I think it would be as different as people hope it would be.
I agree. We talk a lot about any goaltender can get hot or go cold at any given time. It's particularly for someone like Markstrom, who the price is probably going to be quite high for. How much better are you really making your team by going out and getting that guy?
Yeah, because your price for your starting goaltender doubles.
Yep.
So that means that money has to come somewhere.
That's
on your roster.
You're right. You're making it real hard for yourself to go out and get a 2C. If you
and my
Jacob
concern with
Markstrom.
Markstrom is that guy completely melted down against Edmonton in the postseason 2 years ago.
Sure.
How much confidence do you have that the second things started going wrong against him, he fell apart?
No,
to be honest,
it makes me nervous.
You just said it. When he's hot, he's hot. When he's not hot, he's cold. Like,
Yep.
Wow, what a statement. When he's not hot, he's cold.
But he does cold. He does tend to get down on his game, not point fingers. He gets down on himself. But you're right. Number 5, it's a good answer because he's not coming here.
And
He's going to
I only
Jersey.
have him on this list because the Flames are selling. Like
He's going to
they're
Jersey.
talking about getting rid of a lot of guys, and so I was like, let's just not even do this.
good chance Markstrom gets moved. Just
He's
not
going
for
to
the
Jersey.
Avs.
Right.
Yeah.
He's going to Jersey.
Yeah, I think there's appeal.
And there are maybe 5 NHL goaltenders that are consistently very good.
Yeah,
Like it's
maybe.
the hardest position in the league to day in and day out be reliable enough to say
It's a tough one.
he's significantly better.
And when a guy has a bad year, you kind of just have to eat it.
Yep,
Sort of just how it goes.
that's life.
Yeah.
Let's get on to number 4 here.
Same position, but John Gibson. Just because, again, this is a guy that Avs fans have talked about for years.
Well, I think that's the problem, right? Because 4 years ago, I'd have loved going out and getting John Gibson.
Yeah, remember when I mock traded
Yeah.
16 things for him?
I would not do that
awesome.
this year.
Sorry.
It was so much fun, and now I'm glad that didn't happen because no thanks. I'm just not. His game has gotten worse and worse and worse, and I understand he's in a tough environment out in Anaheim, but he hasn't done very well in it.
Yep.
So, there are guys that play well in bad environments every year. Look at every goaltender that Arizona rolls out there for whatever reason. So, for me, John Gibson, I'm good. For me, that's just a no thanks.
Yeah, and now he's hurt, so I don't even know what that means for his movement, generally speaking.
Yeah.
My take on him's always been that, and maybe it's wrong, maybe it's mean of me to think that way. I've always thought about him as a good player on a bad team, if that makes sense. There's always guys like that.
Big fish, small pond.
They play well on bad teams. There's not a lot of pressure to win. You go there, you get bombarded with shots, you do well, but at the end of the day, you lost 3-2, but you got first star. And when it comes down to winning, like the Ottawa Senators right now, oh my God, they're winning every game down the stretch right now. Great, awesome. But when the puck drops in October, when it counts, they never win, right? So maybe I'm wrong. It's just me. I've always thought about him as a good player on a bad team.
I think that's fair. A fair assessment.
Number 3 on this list, I think, that was it. It was Evgeny Malkin.
Yeah.
Just because Pittsburgh, are they any good? Are they not good? And Avs fans are like vultures around the
Stop.
They want to pick apart the Pens.
yes this era of the Penguins' carcass. They are definitely trying to swoop in and pick at a little bit. Malkin, that skating has really gone down. So even though he can still do some things,
Colorado things might not be the
he's still a bad defensive player, and he's not a very good skater anymore. So, also, I don't think he wants to go anywhere.
Yeah, he's on record before said if he doesn't play for the Pens, he'd just go back to Russia.
Yeah, and so I think we'll just not going to happen.
I think for a lot of these, it's about money, too. That people aren't accounting for. Like 2 more years, 6.1 for Malkin's contract. There is a Rantanen extension that will be coming up, I believe, also in 2 seasons.
Yep.
I mean, is it 2?
Maybe this summer.
It's 1 more year. So
he's eligible for it on July 1st. So
So that is something to consider. And Taves' contract starts next year. That is basically going to account for any boost in the cap ceiling that they could potentially have gotten this summer.
Yep.
So there just isn't a lot of money that they're playing around with.
But Megan, it's so much easier to trade for people when you just ignore the cap.
Also, when you just shout things on the internet, they just happen.
Get Malkin. No, I agree with Rudo. My buddy Rudo. I don't know. I just don't think he's. I don't think he's interested in going anywhere or going to.
He's not.
At some point, I think you just move on from guys like that. And he's a great player, great career. It's not what I'm saying, but I don't think it's a fit, for the Avs, and I don't think he would want to come.
All right.
Okay.
Next on this list, Nazem Kadri.
Oh, this one.
'Cause
man.
Avs fans are obsessed with this dude.
Understandably.
Totally. But he's got 5 years on his contract after this, remaining at $7 million per season.
Look,
What? Come on. And he's not going to be the guy that you remember him in year 3. You would be trading for the guy that he was in years 1 and 2.
That's my thing, is for a fan base who seems to live in the moment with every Avs win and loss. They're really stuck in the moment of Nazem Kadri having a point per game season.
Yeah, Nazem Kadri having an 87-point season and immediately going right back to what he was his entire career.
Yep.
Before that happened. So, yeah, I get it, the nostalgia. Hey, he works here. We know he fit. He was really good in that playoff run. He basically became the de facto owner of the city of St. Louis. It was a ton of fun. But let's be realistic here. Like, for a lot of reasons, it doesn't ever.
Let's be real. If the Avs wanted to do this, they would have just signed him.
Hey, just going to say that. They couldn't afford him 16 months ago. Why can they afford him today?
Yeah.
Like, they can't. Like, with all the projections and what's coming up, and Taye's now extended, and, they had to make a choice, right? It was number 13. It was Kadri. It was Burakovsky. Everybody was in that, and Manson was in that bag, right? And I do believe they made the right choice. They made the right choice at that time.
Yeah, and everybody's favorite argument is, what if they just retain? So
Kadri's
a team
not going to retain with 5 years.
A team is going to use one of their 3 retention slots that a team is allowed to have, and they're going to commit to it for 5 years?
No.
What if the Avs traded to make that worth it?
It works on Xbox.
I hope you're not that attached to Callum Ritchie, because he's a flame now. A first-round pick is also going to be gone. So as is Ritchie, so is Sean Barons.
Yeah.
Like, for
if
a team
you're retaining for 5 years,
for
bro.
a team to retain for 5 years, like, come on,
Just
come
retain.
on.
It's that simple. Retain. Okay. All right. Move on.
For 5 years, you're just going to spend $2 million to watch that guy play for somebody else. It's
tough.
Stop. Doesn't exist.
It's just saying. I guess confidently, I'm just saying it's not going to happen.
Yep.
So an hour from now, they'll trade for him, and I'll be like, well.
No, we're doing push-ups together.
Yeah.
We're all doing push-ups.
Yeah, I'm doing a push-up and then calling it a day.
Push up for every time you were wrong about Kadri.
Nope. That'd be a lot.
I don't think it'd be that many.
I've been saying it for 2 years. It's not happening.
Yeah, but that's only one thing that you were wrong about. So
if we're all counting it overall as one thing, great. Yeah. I'm happy to do that. That sounds fair.
All right, what's at the top of this list?
Obviously, it's Sidney Crosby.
What?
Yeah. Avs fans love this guy for obvious reasons. His friendship with Nathan McKinnon. I don't know if you guys know this, but they're both from Cole Harbor. It's pretty crazy. It's a thing where it's like, hey, he's coming to the end of the deal. Would they consider moving him? Would he consider leaving?
Probably not.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun to think about. I mean, I'm going to say no for right now, but also we used to talk about this like with Jonathan Drouin, where it was like, this isn't going to happen for a lot of reasons. This doesn't make sense. And then one day it started to make sense. So, maybe this summer if they miss the postseason and they don't like how things are going. But for right now, in season, I'm confidently going to say Sidney Crosby's not finishing this year in Colorado.
Agree.
My heart wants to keep the door open in the future, though.
You mean all the hoops Mac jumped through to get Crosby on his team at the All-Star game didn't mean anything?
I mean, they are
deal.
like legit homies, so.
Yep.
Maybe McKinnon's role in front office management moves is something we haven't considered enough. Parise, Drouin, Cogliano.
GM
There's a lot of
Dog.
bodies.
Remember that time they
McKinnon's
drafted
wake.
Justin Barron because Nathan McKinnon practiced with him one time?
And then he became a vital piece in Lehkonen, who is now his
only friend.
Support Finn, yeah. Okay, that's.
I guess
feels
he
pointed,
he
but
has Druin now, so he has two friends now.
He has two friends that he literally brought to the team for him.
Is Mac
There are-
actually a
he-
big brain GM?
No,
Is that-
exactly. I don't think we're. And then he brokered a deal at the All-Star game that honestly only favored him. I don't know why Hughes agreed to it, but
Because it's the All-Star game.
because it's an
Crosby's
All-Star game.
never going to be an Av. He's always going to be a Penguin. Oh, but when Gretzky got traded.
All
I
right,
get
fun
that.
police.
No, I'm just being honest. Sidney Crosby, man, is my idol. I love him. He's going to be a Penguin his entire career. He's going to work for the front office after. Unbelievable, unbelievable.
Boo
Penguin.
this man.
Not being honest. Oh,
You're the
Gretzky
one who
got
put him at
traded.
the top of the list.
For this year.
Yeah, never, ever. He's never going to be here. Not a chance. So
Does
it's
he
very
stay
simple.
a Pittsburgh Penguin?
Yes, he's
for
a
life?
Pittsburgh Penguin for
What do you
life.
think his next contract looks like?
I don't know what it's going to be, but he's not going anywhere.
It'll be
Gretzky
eight-
got traded. I
It's
know
gonna
Gretzky
be
was
8-7.
This is what, year 20 for Crosby next year? Gretzky at the time was year 10 when he got traded for an absolute ransom and some cash and some players, and he goes to LA, and then it's the same thing. And I was actually his teammate when he got traded to St. Louis. I was with him. It was a circus for a couple days. I was nuts, but this is different. You're going on 20 years. This is a legacy in Pittsburgh, and he's not that good friends with anyone about that. He's staying a Penguin. His legacy's a Penguin.
This is a weird feeling. Normally, I'm the hater on the pod.
Someone else doing the
Yeah,
hating.
Eric doing all the hating over there.
I'm
Oh
not
my
hating. I'm saying
God.
Sidney Crosby. I'm going to put setups on the line now with the push-ups. He's going to be a Pittsburgh Penguin for life. That's
Unfortunately, I agree with Eric on this one. But
what do you mean? Unfortunately,
because
Crosby being an Avs would be awesome.
Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh, hold on a second. Are you kidding me? That'd be he's my listen. I don't gush over a lot of players. Like, this is the guy I've gushed over the last 20 years. If you're asking me, because I'm older than you guys, you mold a player, you go win a game. The Sidney Crosby's my guy. Of course, I'd like that. I'm saying the top 5 of the players the Avs are not going to get. I totally agree. He's that one because he'll never be here. But man, would I wish for him to be here. Yes. So that's what I'm catching flack on because I can't read. That's fair.
all right,
But I love him.
that was our bet 365.
What a hater.
Never ordinary top 5. 5 guys the Avs definitely will not be getting at the trade deadline. Sorry, chat. You can be sad about it now. However, do make sure you're getting your Roast My Rosters ready.
We are starting to approach. I've already seen a couple of submissions, and I'm like, guys, I'm not going to see these.
Yep.
Those are going to be on page 17 by the time the deadline rolls
start
around.
thinking about them. Don't submit them yet.
Absolutely. Start playing around on Cap Friendly. Just don't put any Roast My Roster submissions in yet.
Yep.
Also, I'm dreading it this year because I don't know what to do.
Your roster's going to get roasted this year.
I don't know what to do. My roster gets roasted every year. People always hate what I do.
Do that. All right. One thing I want to talk about very quickly as we wrap up the show. We don't have to get too in depth with this, Eric, but seen a lot of tweets lately about this scout's here, these scouts are here, this scout
Yeah.
is there. Does that really mean anything?
Well, I'm going to tell you how most teams do it, okay? You get to training camp, and again, things have changed lately, but usually the whole organization's together in training camp, and then pros will get together. When I say pros, the pro staff, and then they'll work on their scheduling, and then they'll get directives on their scheduling.
Real quick.
Yeah.
When are those meetings?
Like training camp, right? First one.
Okay.
And then you'll have a meeting there about, okay, next 2 months of the season, let's say make it simple. You have 2 pro scouts, one in the East, one in the West, okay? Get on top of your teams. a lot of times in those first couple months, you're going to say, want you to see, the Eastern Conference, whatever, let's say your Western Conference, I don't know, at least twice your teams. You know what I mean? And you'll catch them sometimes playing against one another, obviously. You know what I mean? So it's like, if you can get 15 viewings of your teams, and then what it does, and on top of it, the American League as well, right? The depth chart, you know what I mean? Not the junior guys, but you're talking about the guys in the American League. Then you have a really good idea of what you're looking at for that team. Now, internally, you have your meetings, because what are we going to need? Like, as a team, we feel that we weren't able to accomplish in free agency a second line center. Let's say the Avs wouldn't have got, you know what I mean, a Rijo. Let's concentrate here early in the season, try to fix that hole, you know what I mean? So then that's what you're kind of looking at. Your own teams, meaning like the teams you're assigned to, with their American League. And then usually at Christmas time, you'll have another meeting, and then it shifts towards free agency, right? This summer coming up, because everybody has RinkNet, pretty much everything except Lou and Jersey. I mean, sorry, in New York, they have a different system, but pretty much everybody in the NHL is called RinkNet. And now you'll concentrate on free agency, and guys are all color coded. You when you put the roster, then it's the UFAs are red, and you know what I mean. So the guys that are entry levels are green, whatever it is. So you're going to concentrate a lot more then on coming up on free agency. So you go to a game, you make sure that you write a report on a potential UFA, American League or NHL. Now, as you get closer a little bit after that, which was the Avs just had theirs last month in California, then it's trade deadline. You know what I mean? So now, okay, let's what are we going after? What are we looking for? You're going to compare your notes from the start of the year now, and then you might build your schedule out from there. Like, okay, there's 7 guys we've identified. So now your schedule is basically built from training camp to Christmas. It's built. You bought your plane tickets. I mean, it's expensive to travel for teams and stuff like that. So when you read things like November 13th, 7 teams are here. Yeah, no shit. They bought those tickets in freaking September. Like, it's all, it doesn't exist. Now, when you see towards the trade deadline, yeah, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that, my Lord, like, Elias Lindholm was going to get traded. So, I mean, if since Christmas you haven't been watching Calgary, then you're a bad franchise, because you're not really doing your homework, right? So of course, when you're there because that's the directives you've had at your last meeting at Christmas, to make sure you get everything you need to know on Elias Lindholm, and then obviously the 25 other guys you discussed. So, but things aren't going to change. Do they change at the last minute? Yes. Hey, got a phone call today. There's a whatever it is. And I would tell you that most times when that happens, just for all the reasons, guys don't even go in the press box. They'll go in the stands. They'll buy a ticket. They'll sit in the stands. And you don't, and again, a lot of organizations are different, or you want to be there. You want to make sure you're known to be there, and you'll put a name on the press box, to put a little bit of pressure, because you're fighting with Vancouver or with Edmonton about a backup goalie. You'll put a name in there that you're at the game. You're actually not even there, but it makes people think that you're there and talk. And so,
can I ask a follow up here?
Yeah.
So when you guys, those last second changes that you'll make to a schedule to do a check on a guy, to look at somebody, how far down the road would the GM be in having talked to a team about that guy already? Or is it more due diligence, or have there already been substantial conversations in acquiring a guy?
Yeah, it's a good question. A lot of times there's been a lot of talk about it, and then sometimes it's more like, and I'm going to give you an example, okay? We were making a deal with Colorado. This guy, Jared Poland's part of the deal. They're calling him up, they're playing. It's called showcasing a guy. Happens all the time. So then you're there, okay, let's make sure you're there. I know you're supposed to go to Chicago tonight. Don't go there. Get in your car from St. Louis and go to Chicago. This Poland guy is going to be in the plane. We've seen him at the American League level. We have 13 reports on him from our guys, but we've never seen him play at the NHL level. He's playing tonight. They're putting him in there. They have a few injuries, and they're calling him up. And then you're like, oh, that's so weird. Poland played and McDermott didn't play. You know what I mean? Like, we're all like, ah. But at the end of the day, they're showcasing him. And then the guy goes there, he's like, you know what? I liked him. And, then you're able to assess a little bit at the NHL level. That's not so much a guess. How can he be at the NHL level? I'm talking about an extra guy on the trade, right? You're talking about a second or third piece, right? Guys like that. So it does. And then sometimes they'd be like, hey, it's hot. We have to decide between, I don't know, use 2 good players, Gerard or Byron. And then follow this team the next 3 games. So where are the Avs the next 3 games? Colorado, right? And Detroit. So they're like, okay, so they're going to come to the game tomorrow, come to the game Tuesday against Vancouver, and then book a flight to Detroit. And a lot of times, like I said, those guys aren't even going to go through the press box. They'll just buy a ticket, sit in the stands. And you're following these guys. And you might even show up at Family Sports because it is open to the public. No one knows. You have a ball cap on. You're there. You're watching the guys' habits and practice. And I'm just saying, you don't know who's watching. You don't know who's watching. I say that to young guys all the time. So
when you say an organization has identified a handful of guys that you do want to look at, you are following a team around for those couple of games. Other than just watching the games, what other homework are you doing to get information on that guy? Who else? What other conversations do you have?
Absolutely. So, but to 2 parts of that. So that's the pro side. Then the amateur side, also part of the deal. Like they're telling you have prospect Joe Blow, prospect Rudo, and prospect Megan. Pick one of those 3. So now your amateur guys at that time, now they're following those guys across the CHL or college hockey, right? And then to answer your question there, like I used to always bring binoculars in the press box, always. So I'm watching a guy. I'm going to watch him. I'm going to watch him when things go good. If I'm going to watch him when things don't go good, you focus with your binoculars. What's his body language like? He's getting yelled at right now by the coach. Is he just basically, the coach is behind him. Is he basically giving him the finger without giving him the finger? But you can see when you're looking at a guy dead on, you can see a guy's body language. You can see how teammates like him, don't like him. There's so much you can look at. You know what I mean? And I think those are important traits of. And then you call people that have had them. You call assistant coaches that have had him. You call coaches that have had him in juniors. If I showed you RinkNet, like you wouldn't sleep. I mean, the 3 of you guys wouldn't sleep for weeks because you go there and then there's personal and the things and you click on personal and then it's like, hey, talk to his Bantam coach. Always been that way. And it's unreal, the shit that's out there on guys. And then you got to figure out like, is this real or not real? You know what I mean? And then you go from there.
So to get ahead of this Sunday, I know that there is a lot of limited availability in the press box because there's a lot of scouts expected. Is this something that was scheduled in advance to have that many in attendance? Does it strike you as odd at all that it's Colorado, Arizona, kind of a weird time after noonish game?
Well, I mean, you think that Arizona's got guys they're going to sell. So remember at Christmas they had that meeting. Is Arizona really going to stay afloat in the race, or are they going to fall off? And if they're going to fall off, there's Zucker, there's what's his name? Whatever, Kerfoot. We talked about. I mean, there's guys like that they could sell. So teams are like, okay, and then they start falling. You got to remember, there hasn't been a game here in 2 or 3 weeks, so there's not a lot of local guys in Denver because geographically it's a tough spot to be. It's in the East, Michigan.
You got 6
Boston,
teams around you. Yeah.
You got everything around New York, Boston. And then in the West, it's starting to be better now with the American League now in Vegas and in those California teams. So it's better to be suited back there. Here, there's 2 local guys here. We were 2 of us. You know what I mean? Like so now teams are looking. You always look at, is there an Eagles game? Guys are crazy about their games. You average about 25, 26 games a month. In order to do that, you need those afternoon games too. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to Chicago in the afternoon. That night, I'm going to the Blackhawks game. And then here, there's a Thursday night game here and a Saturday night game. But a Friday night, there's an Eagles game. So then it's worth it to come down. It's and then you come down. And then you got to remember, there hasn't been any games here the last few weeks. So yeah, you would expect a busier, contingency of scouts at the game tomorrow, especially that Phoenix is a team that it's been identified probably by at least 30 teams thinking that th're not going to be there.
Yeah.
Right?
But those identifications came at Christmas, really, not in the past 2 weeks.
No, and again, things like sometimes intensify, like I said.
Sure.
And then you're like, as a matter of fact, I'm going to be there in 4 days. I was already there. Oh, yeah, perfect. You're there. You don't need to go there tonight.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Does it happen? Yes, it does. Have I been redirected? Yes, it does. It happens, But it's not like, And again, a lot of times, like Chris MacFarland the other day was like, oh, my God, he's in Anaheim. I know. They had their freaking pro meetings and amateur meetings in California. Like, it was all planned that he was going to go to the Anaheim game that night, whether Adam Henrique had been traded or not.
It's not the last-second scramble some people make it seem like.
I mean, we had our meetings in Boston one year with Calgary, and we were there like a week in advance, and we went to 2 Ranger games, and there was like 5 of us there. So it's not like Rangers and Calgary are making a deal. No, we're just 2 blocks away. Like, we're just going to go to the hockey game, and we're too cheap to buy tickets, so you're going to go in the press box because it's free when you work for a league.
Around the Giroux deadline, when people were thinking about him coming to Colorado,
Yep.
Danny Briere was at Ball Arena. Is that something to ever read into, or does the GM travel with teams pretty regularly?
Every team's different. My old man never went to see a freaking other player. Everybody's different. That doesn't mean it's right or wrong. Danny came down. Like, was he the GM at the time? He wasn't. He was working for Philly. He wasn't the GM, right? So, I think it was all part of
Fletch then, yeah.
going to see guys anyway, and it just happened. Well, yeah, let's talk, and maybe there was talks of guys in Loveland at the same time. Why don't you go give your opinion and you go there? It doesn't happen? Absolutely. Do people read way too much into it? Absolutely. And if you really want to make a real trade and then really make a stealth trade, then you don't let people there. You don't let people know you're there.
Yep. Be sneaky about it.
That's it. No, easy it is to go in a building. You buy a ticket. Game time, whatever it is. Like, you buy a ticket, you go to a building. You don't need to let people know you're there.
So right now, when you see Chris MacFarland popping up, he is out and about. He's at games other than Avs games right now. This is all stuff that has been scheduled and planned out in advance.
You got to remember Chris's style too. Compare him to my dad. My dad never went to games. Never. Different title though, right? President of the Avalanche, and president in ticket meetings, and it's a little bit. The job is different now, right? This is hockey operations. And then there's business operations, and Chris and Joe deal with the hockey operations. They don't deal with anything else, So now Chris loves to see games.
He's always been a grinder.
Chris is a grinder. That's how I've gotten to know him. I knew him on the circuit. Chris is a grinder. Chris likes to see games. And there's some people that are like, I don't want to go watch games. That's not my thing. But I can tell you that if Chris tonight is... I'm hoping he's at home, after that road trip.
Yeah.
But, you know what I mean? Then if not, I'm going to talk to him and say, man, we got to have a talk. But let's say he's at a game next week. Habs playing Detroit Thursday. Let's say they fly Wednesday, and he's nuts, man. He loves to see games. He might go Wednesday to Columbus if I don't know the schedule of the NHL right now, but he might go Wednesday to Columbus, and guess what he'll do about it? He'll write a game report about it on Rinkna. A lot of guys, they go to games, they don't write reports. Chris does. Chris is a hard worker. You know what I mean? And that's it. That's in his DNA. That's how he got to the top, and that's his style. That's his way of doing his job. You know what I mean? But he loves to be also part of those discussions because they're group discussions like we talked about earlier. And then he wants to know that, hey, you're right. I did see him twice last week, Henrique. You know what I mean? When we were there, I went, watched. It's written. Look, my game report's right here. So everybody's style is different.
All right. I hate to cut off the conversation, but we have run way over time here.
Shoot.
And we'll talk about it plenty more leading up to the deadline. So we are wrapping up here. We appreciate all of y'all hanging out with us for an off-day pod. Off tomorrow, but we will be back for the game Sunday. So be sure to tune in for all of our coverage there. We will talk to you on the next one.
We all silly like the mayor.